Welcome back to the podcast. Today's conversation takes us into the heart of what it means to mother through crisis. Melissa May knows firsthand the weight of navigating motherhood during the pandemic. Whilst the world stood still, she was moving through sleepless nights, the impact of isolation, and the crushing silence of doing it all alone. She openly shares how anxiety took root in her body, how daily panic attacks became part of her rhythm, and what it really looks like to regulate a nervous system under constant strain. Together, we question the expectations society places on mothers and explore what happens when those expectations meet the reality of unprecedented times. This is a raw, emotional, and honest reflection on the unspoken truths of mothering in isolation. It also highlights the courage, resilience, tenderness of a soul-aligned woman and the love she brings to herself, her child, and the world. Please note this is part one of this nourishing conversation and will leave you in anticipation for what comes next. Enjoy. Okay, I'm very excited to welcome Melissa May to the podcast today. This is going to be such a nourishing conversation. We're going to just dive straight in. So, Melissa, would you like to tell us how your experiences of early motherhood and how you came to be a solo mother?
Yeah, I became a mum. I birthed Grace at home in my mum's lounge room. And the birth itself was a really beautiful, the best experience of my life, actually. And I'd love to do that again. Like, I'd love to birth again because it was so beautiful and so, so incredible. And the whole world just dropped away then. And I was able to be just in my experience and my relationship with Grace and, life and death and all the things. But I guess after that, um, everything became really, really hard, like from basically day one or day two to years, like till 2 years later. Yeah. The early years, I should say, of motherhood felt like that period felt really long for me, where I felt like I was really in the trenches, which I know it's like that for many mums, especially first time mums. But my daughter Grace, she was born in 2020 in the middle of sort of COVID-19, and that period of time was, I think I would define it as like riddled with a lot of fear and a lot of isolation. And I think that those two things are not supportive for a brand new mum coming into that becoming of mother. Like, we want that mum not in a space of fear, like in a space of safety, so she can, access her whole heart and her whole intuition, feel feel like she can really trust, her wisdom and decision making. And I was I think, I don't want to call it like that plague of fear at that time really had gotten the better of me. I noticed that prior to then, I was always someone that I felt very connected to my intuition and my sort of inner knowing. And from that period on, it's come back now, but there was a good couple of years where I felt like I couldn't really access it. And it scared me. Like, I was second guessing myself in every choice I was making. And I found that really hard to have an empowering experience, I guess, in my early motherhood days. And just being isolated in the sense of, we're supposed to be parenting and just living in community. That's what's more natural for us as our species, as humans. And we're already quite individualistic, even in our individual households, the way we live today, compared to how things were back in the day. But that was incredibly isolating. And so, it was a really scary time. And I felt like I wasn't, I felt like I was drowning and just surviving minute by minute. And Grace had some health challenges as well. And Yeah, it was a just in overall the summer, it was a very, very tough time. And Grace's dad, who was my partner at the time, he was present for the birth and he was present for a couple of months after. And it was then he went back to Los Angeles, and Grace was 2 months old. And that was a time where she was unwell and we didn't know what was going on in her body, and I was absolutely drowning. um, and we didn't know when and if he was going to be coming back. And so I guess from that point onwards, I was also navigating the immense uncertainty of my future of the relationship that I was in, and I was now mothering on my own essentially. And yeah, just a really difficult time. And although we hadn't intended to separate then, because it was the COVID period, and we didn't know with
Mm.
government regulations when he would be able to come back, he was actually intending for that exit to come back a couple of weeks later, and he couldn't. And to summarize the extent of that, he didn't come and see Grace again till she was over 2 years old. And so yeah, our relationship ended prior to his returning here. And it wasn't just due to that separation. We both can acknowledge that our relationship um, probably wasn't. I mean, not probably wasn't. It wasn't right for us both, and we had relational challenges that were definitely not going to be resolved, just with, I guess, different values or different, not just values. We might have perhaps thought that we had the same values, but our expression and application of those values were different. And yeah, it was just a really hard period because I felt like everything was falling away around me, and I was just trying to figure out every day how to keep this baby alive. Essentially, that was like my only thoughts. And so yeah, it's like it's I'm still it's so in me, that period of time. It's so like etched in my body and my cells, and there's still a lot of healing from that period. But at the same time, I can feel, I guess, how far I've come from that time and how I'm on my 2 feet, and I have joy in my life again. Like I can feel experiences like that again. And yeah, big hard time. Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are others that have had similar experiences that will be glad that you've just spoken about that, and the challenges that that brings, because, you've named so many things that potentially are very wobbly times in our life. That is, becoming a mother is anyway.
Mhm.
Being in that COVID period is just unprecedented in its challenges. That's something that, unless you've experienced having a baby during that time, you probably don't fully grasp
Mhm.
how, isolating that was, and how, as you said, there were so many expectations around that time that it would have been very hard to sort of move inwards and check with how you were feeling about it, because a lot of things were out of our control during
Yeah.
that time. And then, of course, the relationship breakup. So yeah, thank you for giving us insight into what that would have felt like for you.
Mm.
How do you feel other mothers would have felt during that time of COVID, having children, maybe not going into motherhood in a solo manner, but still having all the expectations of the way in which we were supposed to live during that time, which was mostly in isolation and mostly in fear, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you think that that actually does to a woman and her sense of agency and her sense of intuition?
Yeah, I think that COVID period was a more it kind of magnified a lot of struggles that a lot
Mm.
of us already had or are already moving through. And yeah, the levels of, I guess, yeah, disconnect from, or just inability to be able to step forward in the world in a way that felt congruent with your heart and your values was
Mm.
very, very challenging. And
Mm.
we all, especially in hindsight, we can actually look back and see the impact, even if we think, oh no, like I'm quite a sovereign person and I think for myself, and we can actually see what the like that mass fear and the media, and if you're constantly hit with, I guess, that just fear all the time, how that starts to impact us. Like almost none of like no one was not impacted like by
Mm.
that time. Um and so I mean I can't speak for mothers everywhere, and I have had spoken to some moms who actually found that time a dream,
Mm.
be really honest with you. And it's so hard to sit. I'd be watching them. It's as if we're like, I almost would feel dizzy listening to them. And I love them so dearly. But to them, they're like, it was just an amazing time. I just really surrendered into motherhood. And it was so, I guess, confronting to know that one experience can be so
Mm.
profoundly different from woman to woman based on many factors. And so there were factors like this particular woman had no financial pressures at that time,
Mm.
right? Um, and yeah, there was many other things, when I speak to another friend, she was also like, this was one of the hardest times of my life. I'm
Mm.
not used to being at home with my 3 kids and worrying about them falling behind at school or what's going to happen, and their children have developed quite an intense anxiety from that period still that they're carrying forward to this day because
Mm.
they were bombarded with news and numbers and things like that. And yeah, overall, I think as for human beings, I don't think we're really seeing yet the full effects and impact of that period of time on us all. Yeah, I don't think we're yet seeing the full impact of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, and each of us have had such a different experience in that time. I think majority found it to be difficult, and challenges that we had if we were already, if we had relational challenges, sometimes they were coming up
Mm.
ever because there's no distraction. You're with your partner all day every day, and you're living in an energy of fear and lack of safety and maybe financial struggles, and just like whatever we usually do for connection or even what we do for distraction, we don't have it anymore,
That's right. Yeah.
and how do we really um yeah, it was hard because a part of it is like there is an opportunity in some way to come home to, your inner terrain and to really connect with yourself and what really matters. There was that opportunity there to some degree, and a lot of people felt that and were like, "Oh, I came home to cooking again." They're baking their sourdough
Mm.
breads and they're, spending more quality time with their family. But also, and that's beautiful that they were able to sort of hone in, but there were a lot of people in that period that didn't have, all the family around, that there was some sense of community. It was quite isolating. And
Yes.
people needed more mental health support as well. And I think for mothers as well, um, it's really crucial that they have support. And a lot just didn't in that time. So it's a lot of confusion, a lot of disconnection, and a lot of, yep, not trusting themselves. And I think that that also has a long-term effect if you've spent 2 years of the first 2 years of your motherhood questioning, not having access to, your intuition and just that beautiful focus on that mother baby dyad that needs to strengthen and develop, and just yeah, it has an impact. Yeah, it's quite
Yes.
sad actually. Yeah.
Yes, and I do agree with you. There are varying, ideas about what was experienced during that time, and I've come across many families that, as you said, quite enjoyed it. But I think the ones that felt really good about it were probably ones that, as a couple, they were able to feel the beauty of working together on this,
Mm,
especially if they only had one child.
mhm.
And so,
Yeah,
whereas partners are normally going back to work and, not being available to the woman, all of a sudden they were. So that became a really, if they were a very, united couple and on the same page and
yeah,
working together, that was quite a beautiful thing.
yeah.
Or if they had a lot of people in their life that they didn't particularly want to visit them in
Yeah,
that early postpartum
yeah.
stage, that was also a good thing because they had a very good excuse to say
Yeah.
no. But then if I talk to sort of Melbourne mums, there's a lot of trauma I feel from mothers that were in Victoria and really had the full brunt of,
Yeah.
the different lockdowns and different restrictions that were upon them. So,
Was a lot different there. I mean, that's why I came here. That's why I moved to where I am
mm,
now. I was actually in the middle of the COVID time, and so
mm,
yeah, and that was sort of a choice of I don't really know yet what 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 my life's gonna be like and what I'm actually doing, but I know that I need to remove myself from this environment. Like it was just a
mm,
deep knowing and logically it didn't make sense to a lot of people because I was by myself. I was still struggling. I was in no way on my feet. But I was living at my mum's at the time. So people were like, but you've got the support from your mum. Why would you leave? Like, are you
mm,
sure? But I wasn't getting any better there. And when I say not any better, what I meant was things were start like I just wasn't getting any better. My nervous system was so beyond shot that I was really not coping. And I remember just sitting to myself one day saying, what is the most urgent, most important priority that your nervous system needs? And I just knew it was to get out of Melbourne and to be somewhere that when I think of it, my nervous system felt really held and supported.
mm,
And it was the area up here of northern New South Wales because I was very familiar with it. It was, well, weather-wise, it was warmer, but there was a lot of dense nature and I just knew, well, what else are you doing? You're here with your baby, you're barely working, you got nothing. Like, just go where what's going to hold you whilst you just try to get through your days with your baby. And um, everyone's like, "Are you sure? Maybe you should just wait another year."
mm,
And I was like, "No, I need to go." And it was quite a quick decision. And then I packed up and drove the car up here. And at that time, unvaccinated people were not able to cross the border. And I wasn't actually intentionally unvaccinated. I did get one vaccine and I had an adverse reaction to that, which also coupled to my, I guess, my early years of just being in a really stressful, feeling unsafe in my body, and all of that. And but because I'd only had one vaccine, I was still considered unvaccinated. And so I was like, I could just be pulled up on this border and be sent back. So it was just this giant leap of faith
mm,
which led me here. And as soon as I got here, I started healing. It didn't look like that straight away because it was still hard and I was still really not okay in my nervous system, in my emotional body, my mental body, my physical body. But slow, like signs were coming that, you're in the right place. And just, yeah. And that's how it unfolded, really. So, yes, I do very
yeah,
relate to the intensity of Melbourne.
mm.
Yeah, very intense.
And I feel like, yeah, a lot of these mothers are still feeling it. It's still very raw for
Yeah.
them. Yeah. So that's so courageous of you.
Yeah.
Like you went against all kind of what seemed to be logical and what people were throwing at you, but you really did. I'm always amazed by a woman's ability to still dig deeper and
Mm,
draw from what feels right for her and her own intuition. So, yeah, very brave and um, obviously the right move. But
mm.
what extra challenges, I guess, did that pose now that you actually definitely were now parenting as a single mother? And what are some of the nuances that maybe women that aren't in that position may not even realize might seem invisible? Not women, people in general might not realize.
Yeah, I mean, because I had moved interstate from my family and my friends, um I didn't have any friends, like close friends that I would be like moving and being able to catch up with. I had a lot of acquaintances and I had a couple of friends that just lived quite far away still, like, an hour from here.
Mm,
So yeah, stepping into a space with no community,
mm,
and my family support in that physical sense, that day to day being gone. I think every parent can relate with that, what that would be like to have, whether they don't have family support or
mm,
um, yeah, or have moved away from that family support could understand. I was just at a point where it couldn't get any worse. Like
mm,
it's a bizarre thing. It literally couldn't. It could not get any worse. I couldn't even yet begin to think about support because my process every day was actual survival. Like, not in the way that people are like, I'm just trying to keep up with everything. Like, in an actual, like, am I going to take another breath? Like, because I had had the heart inflammation. Like, I was so scared that something was going to happen to me and we're going to get through this next minute. It wasn't even a day. I couldn't go that far. And it was like, cool, another minute. And there was so much me just having to manage my panic attacks and manage, like, so great. It was a very difficult time that I was like, well, it makes really no difference where I am. And I guess that process of um, finding my feet, one of the greatest things was that feeling of, well, isolation, but feeling of loneliness, I guess, of when I even started to make friends and community. Um, being a single parent or a solo parent I felt was different because it wasn't as if my daughter was with her dad, even one day a week or 2 days a fortnight, where I knew that that day was coming, where I could fall in a heap if I needed to, or sleep, or just see that friend alone, or go to a yoga class. There was no day off coming. And to really pull that out for like years is like can get quite overwhelming when you're at capacity and you're just like, I just need 20 minutes. I would do anything if I could just walk down the street without the child for
Yeah.
20 minutes. That's all I need. I'd recenter, I'd come back. And to not have that was quite overwhelming. And something that yeah, I felt that, yeah, people didn't really understand. And I guess it's really not their responsibility either to some degree. And I get that.
Mm.
And it's sort of like, well, these other families, are doing their things and they're not really aware that this solo parent is like, it's actually the same every day of the week, like
Mm.
7 days. It's not like weekend comes and now we do family time because the husband might be days off work. It's like every day I'm just getting through my day with my child. And yeah, I think I have a lot of um I still feel a little bit of, I guess, a sadness that I didn't really have much joy in those early times. And I look at my daughter now, and every day is like, oh my god, I love this. But I'm like, wow, you didn't. I look back at videos, I'm like, oh wow, she was so joyful and so cute, and I just couldn't feel that back then because to be honest, I was almost wishing the time away. The whole, okay, I wait
Mm.
till she gets bigger so I can like have a moment. And I do feel a lot of guilt that she had a mother who was struggling the whole time, like struggling not the whole time, but struggling for a good 2 years. And every day she's seen her mum have a panic attack, mum disassociating. We're both in bed by 4:30, just me trying to calm my nervous system down because I'm just I can't actually be up in the day anymore because my system's shutting down because I'm so,
Mm.
and it's hard because some people haven't experienced that extreme anxiety, acute anxiety and panic attacks for a really prolonged period. I'm not talking a few months, I'm talking like every day for 2 years, right?
Mm.
Um and so there's all those elements that, and of course I don't really expect people to understand, but it did feel quite lonely and isolating, and it was this strange dynamic of wanting people around, but I was also just so exhausted to think of how could I even sit and have a cup of tea with somebody, because if they don't really know me, like, say your mum came over, you could just sit and be as you are, where I was making new friends and I was like, they're going to think I'm a total nut job if I don't hold myself together and just like have a conversation. But sometimes that felt too hard. And so, yeah, the process was difficult. And I think that the same challenges mothers have, not just mothers, sometimes parents have, because sometimes it isn't just the mum that is a primary caregiver. And sometimes it is a more 50-50 dynamic. It's not often, but parents are feeling the weight of isolation even if they don't think they're isolated. They think, "Oh,
Mm.
isn't this normal? We've got 2 parents, we're happy, we've got family there." Even that dynamic, the best of us, is still in less community it's in less community than we're meant to be, living and raising children in my opinion. So, when you sort of pull it down to a single parent who has shared time with a child to a solo parent, it's just the challenges often get a bit stronger and larger, like that
Yeah.
isolation is even greater, because you're also unable to be as social, or you don't have that time to be like, I'm going to catch up with that friend because
Mm.
it's bedtime, she's asleep, and here I am, and I can't go anywhere because my baby's in the bed sleeping. And yeah, it was big. And yeah, I just, yeah, surrendered to, like, this is just the way that it is, and I'll take the little moments and do what I need to do to stay afloat. And I just kept trusting that brighter days were coming. Like, I had a very strong sense of trust in me despite falling apart every day. I really was like, "Eh, better days are coming. Like, this is not going to be forever, and you've moved through the worst of it," is what I kept telling myself, which was true. And yeah, the small little moments of light kept appearing. And yeah, it shifts. It shifts slowly.
Mel, I was feeling every word. um, so many ways we could take this conversation.
Mm,
And thank you. Just also really honoring you for sharing that, and feeling safe enough to share that, because that, I think, is in itself is such a gift to our collective motherhood,
mm,
is to be able to share that vulnerability and to make these conversations everyday conversations
yeah,
and not shameful conversations.
yeah.
So thank you. I'm really grateful that you've shared that. And, it hit something in me, as it would every mother, as you said, like, regardless whether we have a partner, don't have a partner, some of these feelings that we have are very universal.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest ones is guilt
Yeah,
as a mother. I think that that's something that, every mother would say that she's felt at some point or another. And I was just thinking of my own situation, and when I had my little boy too, and he was a very dysregulated baby and a very dysregulated toddler, and it made me dread every night. Every night I know that we'd be up for most of the night, and the daytimes were often filled with just extreme crying, many tantrums when he became a toddler, and just lots of dysregulation. And that's a lot. That's too much. That's too much for one. You made me very emotional too. It's too much for
yeah,
one woman to be managing, to be trying to manage her own nervous system and also her child's. And I think we probably will sort of, we've touched on it, and we'll continue to talk about the societal expectations of mothers. This is what they want us to feel. This is part of the societal conditioning that we have, is to, in order to be considered a mother, you should feel guilty. The dichotomy of the expectations of us and the realities of what's reasonable. And what I'm saying is, for how much we can cope with, how much we can take on, it really is needing to be addressed, because it's not matching.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and it's, I mean, there's such a, yeah, a large discussion around, you know, and there's so many different perspectives, and it's not just from a male perspective and a female perspective, because even the females can share the same perspective as that. You know, it's, there's so many perspectives when it comes to, like, I guess, expectations of how a family unit is to function, and, you know, gender roles and things like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, we are seeing so much, we're seeing, like, that increase in, you know, women and autoimmune diseases, and just like how much they're holding. And I don't, yeah, it's just like the evidence is there that something's not working, right? Like, it's just there because so many mums do express that feeling of isolation, the feeling like they just can't hold it all. They can't do it all. They don't feel enough. Yeah, and it's a, it's really like it's not only not healthy, but it's not supportive of just like us as humans and the world we're wanting to create. If women are so feeling so disempowered and feeling this sense of not enoughness, no matter because they're doing more than they've ever could feel capable of doing, and it's still not enough. Yeah, and the solutions for that, I don't know, because yeah, I was speaking to a girlfriend the other day, and she was a girlfriend that I thought would always sort of be racing to want to go back to work because she loved her job, and I was like, I think that's going to be, we'll see how. But she is just wants to mother. She just wants to be. She doesn't even. It's not even in her age. She just has her three babies and wants to continue doing that. But she feels also this pressure of like, well, this debate of whether they can or cannot afford, because sometimes that idea of we can't afford for two not to work, but sometimes I think that's actually, well, we could afford for two not to work or two not to work full time, but it would mean we need to drastically shift our lifestyle expectations and the way in which we're living, like really downsizing everything and simplifying for a small window so you can be there with your babies if that's, the priority, but feeling that pressure of I've got to go back, to work, and I've got to send my kids off into the system, I guess,
Yeah.
and that's heartbreaking. It's like can't win this way, can't win that way, it's hard.
Yeah. I think the message that we often receive is that we have choice and that we can do it all. We can do it all, but in actual fact, choice is something that is not gifted to us. We
Mm,
need to choose ourselves, don't we? We need to intentionally and mindfully choose. And it makes me think of I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Sophie Brock,
no.
who's a sociologist in motherhood studies. Like she specializes in um, the work of mother. That's where she gained her PhD. And she talks a lot about the perfect mother myth.
Mm,
And I think it can be so tempting to buy into that,
yeah,
kind of to buy into the fact that, yeah, we can do it all. We can do it all. And we could do it all and we would love it all as well. We would love every moment of mothering. We'd love every moment of work. Somehow we'd manage to do both of them without either of them knowing that we do the other.
yeah.
And what it inevitably leads to often is depletion.
Mm,
And unfortunately, often the burnout. But
yeah.
then the mother often thinks to herself, well, this is what motherhood is, because this is what it means to be a perfect mum,
Mm,
is that we don't let any balls down. We
mhm,
have to manage it all. And therefore she often gives up and thinks, well, why would I even try to think about another way or have choice? Because I am going to be depleted. This is just part and parcel of what it's all about.
yeah.
I think part of the way that we can start to make small shifts is just this awareness that
Mm,
there is this kind of, I guess, how would you describe like this kind of, I feel like it's something sitting over us that's kind of maneuvering us or influencing us. We can start to be aware that this is part of something that's just not true, something that we could never meet up to, and something that we don't have to meet up to is doing everything perfectly, managing all parts of our life. There are ways to move away from that, and we do have choice.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So, how have you chosen then to live and work in your life that you feel very much aligns with choice and autonomy? And
Mm,
also, I'm kind of keen, maybe we can make this a second part of the question to talk about how you do regulate your nervous system and how, things started to shift for you in those early days that you were able to start to find your feet and become back into yourself a little bit more.
mm. Yeah. Ah, when I started to think about and look at my work, because I have been a yoga teacher and an embodiment teacher for 12 years, and that's what I did full time, and loved it, and was quite successful in that space, and always earned enough money, and had sort of always enough work, that I could say yes to should I want to, pre-grace and that sort of, I guess, single life, because I could just work any hours I wanted, right? And I loved it, and so off I went. And then having Grace, it was sort of like, and I had no time to prepare for what that would look like, because I also thought I would be in partnership, so we would be working as a team, and he would be able to still work, and so I wouldn't need to worry about generating a full-time income from my work. But that shifted in a matter of a moment, which I couldn't really think about at the start because I was, surviving. But yeah, it for me, I guess there was limited choice. I didn't have the choice to be a stay-at-home mum only. So that wasn't an option. And to be honest, I'm not it's hard to know. And this is what I want to highlight around the conditioning, where like we're literally all in it, even if we don't know it. Is I used to say I wouldn't want to be a stay-at-home mum anyway, because I love my passions. I love doing this. But I'm starting to question my those desires and where they've actually come from, because a part of me was like, well, I guess I thought that because women these days who are doing it all are very praised, right? And I
Mm.
can see that my conditioning even does that too. Like my girlfriend comes up to me and says, I've launched a new business. And I'm like, you are amazing. You are. And then whenever mum came up to me, was like, oh, I've just decided I'm just going to stay at home and be a mum for the next 10 years. You're like, oh, good for you. But you're not as lit up, right? But I was like, whoa, what is this? We should be like, you are doing the rock star of the rock star job
Yeah.
there is on the planet. I
Yeah.
should be shouting louder than I am the other. Well, both equally, I guess, but because
Yeah.
they're both choosing from what they want. But I noticed that I was more, I guess, even slightly more inspired in this weird conditioned way of the
Yeah.
woman able to start this new career and be successful. And I've started to just notice these things and really ask myself, well, where did that desire that you really wanted this identity outside of mother for that window of time? And I've just started like being with that. And I'm not sure actually what that would look like if I had choice. Would I want to be with my baby for the first few years? Maybe I actually would, so I can really hone into that role fully without the pressures, right, of everything else. So that was sort of something interesting that I've been sitting with, of what is actually mine, what is actually my desire, and
Mm.
what's been imprinted in me by so many things. But, at the end of the day, I didn't have that choice at that time anyway, and I had to work, and it was like, well, how am I gonna pay the bills and raise my daughter? And my heart just broke, because I was like, "Holy God," like, and even if I was in Melbourne, just to preface, it I wouldn't have had babysitting help. My mum works full time, so my mum might be able to help one day on a weekend, but things like that help after work a little bit with some dinner and bath. But I wouldn't have care there to be able to work. I would be having to send my child to daycare
Mhm.
5 days a week to be able to earn enough money to make it all happen. And that even it's like, there's, for me and my values, and there's nothing about that I wanted to do. And so yeah, and I would rather work in a job that I don't love to prevent that from happening than continue to pursue yoga. It was sort of this way up. But I started trying to move into the online space with my yoga work, because I was like, great, if I can somehow get some things out online and do that, I can start to bring some income in that way, where I'm not having to show up at a yoga studio. And so that was sort of the plan to begin with, so I could actually be present for my daughter. But yeah, as you know, I stepped into the online space with a
Mm.
Nagic, and oh my goodness, it's been such a gift, because I just got opened up to a world of, all right, I actually have choice, like real choice in my hours of work.
Mm.
It's really as choiceful as it can get, is true. I actually have the capacity to, if I'm sick with Grace for a week because she's unwell, to do very minimal then, and then pick up, and keep building after that. I really had true freedom in terms of like the hours that I worked and the times. And those hours and times were able to change constantly and be flexible. And for me, that was like it's like a golden ticket for me. I was like, wow, you might have a pathway. I can't have it all. I can't be it all. I know that. But to be able to hold on to that part of me that really wanted to give my daughter as much presence as possible, because I couldn't find another way to do that in any other working system that I was in. So for me, it meant stepping out into a field that was foreign. Like, it's foreign. I've never, worked in, I guess, traditionally sales. Of course, we're all in sales. I've always promoted and sold my yoga classes and all the things I'm passionate about, but not in the way that, not sales of selling a product. But yeah, for me, it has been the most beautiful gift, and it it was a key factor in me being able to buy back some time to take a breath.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that it offered something helpful to your own mothering experience. Who is? Head over to my website to receive your free copy of the postpartum checklist and contact list. And if you'd like to be better prepared for your postpartum, both practically and mentally, purchase the Peaceful Postpartum ebook, a 52-page interactive guide on what you need to know and what matters most in postpartum. And so that we can get these conversations out to more mothers, I'd be grateful if you could like, share, and review this podcast, and we'll see you next time.